And so that's my little rap about how I came to write the book. What I'll do is we'll take questions for just a few minutes and then we'll get started. So I'll take you right up front. What's your question?
Thanks.
Just yell it out loud.
Thanks for coming, Gary.
Thanks for having me.
Love you, man. Is there, listening to a lot of the history of Howard and everything, is there a favorite era of yours? I mean, you guys are great now, but is there a time you look back and say, man, that was a golden age, or we had a lot of fun then, or we didn't know what we had?
I think I look back at the first year at NBC as a golden age, but that's just for me personally because I was just a kid and the whole thing was just swirling around me. And it was, it was so big and it was so amazing. I actually look back at these last 5 years at Sirius. I think that they'll be looked at as a golden age because we really got to stretch out and, I tell everybody, when we were at terrestrial radio, when it got towards the end, I get in the studio about 5:40 in the morning. Howard, walks in usually a little bit after that, and we sit down, I have a card, and I said, we can talk about this, talk about that. I just sort of give him some reminders of stuff that he wants to do. And when we were at terrestrial radio, inevitably, 3 out of 5 days, I would say, hey, by the way, that bit that we ran yesterday, I had to edit out this and edit out that. Sometimes I'd come back after we did that and then have to edit it again. And his shoulders would just slump, just like, oh, I can't believe that we had to edit that crap. And then we would write on a little piece of paper to his left. He could look and see what the commercial spots are for each hour. And at Christmas time, it would be 23 minutes of commercials an hour. And he would look at that and his body language would slump because he would be like, if I'm running so many commercials, how on earth can I ever get started on something? So those two things have been erased since we got to Sirius Radio. I never have to say we can't run that, and I never have to worry about the commercial. I think we run 6 minutes of commercials an hour. And so I think that's dramatically changed the show, being able to say whatever we want to say. And I tell people all the time, just because we can curse, maybe at the beginning we might have gotten a little crazy, but just because we can curse doesn't mean we have to. And I cite, Chris Rock was on about a year ago, and the interview was phenomenal. It was like two guys sitting in their living room. It was one of my favorite interviews. And I think the only word I would have had to bleep on terrestrial radio was, I think somebody said the word shit, like, oh, he's full of shit or something like that. But they talked about things, and like when you talk about sex, even though they didn't get graphic, we were getting to the point of terrestrial radio where even the most juvenile word had to be bleeped. So in a roundabout way, I'm saying I'm loving these last 5 years that we had.
Gary, just want to say thank you for all the years, and I don't really have a question, but just again, thanks, and I think we all agree that nobody has given more of that show than you have.
Well, I think the back cover says it all.
Lovely show, love you, Gary. Thanks for coming. Quick question: if you were to describe the Stern Show fans in one word, what would it be?
Loyal. I mean, the loyalest fans in the world. I mean, the fans will go anywhere we go. And the thing I get at these book signings that really touch my heart are people come by and they say, you guys can't leave. I've been listening to you for 25 years. If you guys go away, what am I going to do? And that really means a lot. I haven't had that experience because I've been doing it so long. I haven't had the opportunity to sit in my car and be so attached to a radio show the way you guys have. But I enjoy it and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Love the show. Can you comment on how Artie's doing?
Yeah, this question comes up in every book signing, and it's fine. So I talk to Artie probably every 2 months, every 6 weeks. And the last time I spoke to Artie was right before I did Letterman, which I guess that was about 5 weeks ago or so. Artie actually gave me a joke to use on Letterman that worked out really well. But I haven't had a chance to talk to him in that period of time since he called me a couple of times. In fact, I was at a book signing, my phone rang, and it was like, hey, Artie, say hello to everybody. He's doing better. He's doing a lot of the things that he needs to do. He told me he's been clean and sober since January. But the thing I tell everybody, like, what happened to him was a very traumatic thing. And you don't get there in a week. And so you don't get better in a week. And there's this expectation from the fans that, like, I think one of the things that's really stirring this whole pot is that people heard Artie went out and did stand-up. But Artie didn't go out and say, hey, I'm back doing stand-up. His shrink said, hey, it would be a good idea if you went out and did it. So Artie went out late at night to a small club where he didn't think he'd be noticed, and then somebody was there that noticed him and ended up in the paper. So it's not like Artie's out and working again. He's still trying to get better again. So I think he's doing a lot better. I've been talking to him often. Every time I talk to him, he sounds a little bit better. Although sometimes there's setbacks. Sometimes I talk to him and he's just like, man, this was a shitty week. But that's to be expected.
I have two questions actually. First one, after all the making in the book, do you regret any parts, like the list, for example, that are?
No, I really don't. Because oddly, some people like them. And again, if you don't like the list, if you look at the book, there's like 8 lists in there. Just like skip a page. It's not like the list jumps out and shoves it in your face.
And the other thing, what are the chances to see Ari in the next week?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't spoken to him, so I don't even know where his head's at. But
I mean,
I think
inside the program, there is a chance for them to come back, or I mean, what is the problem? He don't want to come back, or you don't want to have him, or?
I think that without getting into it, I think that he's got to be in a place where it's good for him. I know it's good for you. See, that's a problem. It's something that you want, but it's got to be because coming on and telling that story affects you. It's going to affect you. It's a heavy story. It's not the kind of story you come on and say, "Oh, I was walking through the park one day." And it's like very emotional, and I don't know how that's going to affect him. So it's really got to be up to him. All right, over here.
Thank you.
I totally think I'm sure I'm I really do. I genuinely do. I call my new nickname for him. He's a cement head because you can't get anything in the back of the striped shirt.
Gary, top 3 jobs after Stern.
There aren't any. There really aren't any. I think I might have said this on the rap show. I can't remember, but I was out talking to some producers about what the possibilities were for me if the show ended. This was like a year and a half ago, and I was talking to this woman, and she said, "Listen, you getting a job," she goes, "I have no worry about that." She goes, "My fear for you is you're never going to find a job that you love as much as the one you have now," and that I totally understand.
You never know.
I do. Hold on. I do not have FU money. Because if I did, I wouldn't be here.
What's your favorite book?
What's my favorite book?
Yeah, what do you get?
Booking.
Oh, my favorite booking. McCartney I worked on. The first time McCartney came on, I worked on that for a very long time. Like literally, no joking around, like 6 years. Like I started talking to a guy. I would call every year for Howard's birthday show. It was no, and then the no was a little bit less of a no, and then Howard started saying some nice things about Paul, and I started sending the guys CDs. I call that it was like a term project, That's one of my favorite bookings. I'd love to say Billy Joel is my favorite booking, but he's Howard's friend, and Howard said, "Come on in." So that's one of them. Here, right here.
Just a question. In terms of like the Howard beating up on you on the show, early on, at what point was it like, that you would come and say, "Hey, it's just shtick," and at what point, like, is there times when it's like really serious and like really?
Well, he never came to me and said it's just shtick. And the early stuff was more sort of goofing around, what's up with you, Brad? That's like sort of goofing, but then the fighting would be real, and people, it'll probably come up as another question, so I'll answer it now. People have said, have you ever thought about quitting? And I've said, no, I've never been that upset. And they go, when you guys fight like that, how do you move on? And this is what I say. My philosophy is you have to forge ahead, and we have a job to do. So if I'm going to sit in my office and pout, then nothing's going to get done. If he's going to be mad at me, not talking to me, nothing's going to get done. So there's been times where we've had some knockdown, drag-out fights that seem pretty real, and we go to break, and I walk in and I just say, "Okay, this is our next guest, this is what we're doing." He says, "Okay," and that's just sort of how we deal with it.
What about does Robin? Does that get under your skin when Robin starts?
No, because I know that there's plenty of ways to get hurt. Right here.
I got it. What's the hardest part of your job? Is it dealing with Howard or booking the guests or that kind of stuff? Or
it's everything. I mean, it depends on what kind of mood Howard's in. Sometimes it could be hard dealing with it, but it's really not. I mean, our show's one of those shows that has no plan. Howard's got an idea in his head what he wants to do, so it's very free form. So that might be the hardest part, just trying to guess at what he wants, or guess at the way things are going to go. But that's the part of the job I love the most too, because it's not if I had to go on a job and every day it was at 7:18 we're going to do the weather, right. At 7:25 we're going to give away tickets, I think I'd hate it.
So on the fly, every day is a different story.
Every day when I go in, I say every day is a different job, and one day I could wake up and. I woke up and I thought I was going to work, and by 9 o'clock I was the assistant campaign manager of a gubernatorial run. There, bud.
Hey, pleasure to speak to you, Gary. One of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life was when you played Larry Linville's wife and Howard gave you a breast reduction. Why have those shows never come to DVD?
He's talking about the Channel 9 show. There's some sort of ownership issue that everyone involved doesn't own them, so nobody's putting them out. But it's not. I think we'd love to have them out. I mean, I've watched them. They, you know, God, I was like a baby.
There is a website where you can get it for free.
Don't say
Ask me. Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite Bababooey song?
Yeah, this is a good question. I get a lot too. I'd say probably my favorite one is either Carmina Bowie. That's like the opera one. But I like the Star Wars Bowie one. Everybody loves it. Way in the back, sir, with the glasses.
How much more do you enjoy your man cave after this book thing is over with?
Yeah, I'm psyched to be home. Like I'll be home by 1:30 tomorrow. It's been on the road a lot, gone on weekends, and I'll be happy to sit in the man cave and watch the Jets beat the Patriots on Monday night. Right up front here. Can you get a tour of the studio? No. I'm sorry, I don't mean
We have McCartney tickets.
If you were a hot chick with boobs, maybe. It's getting to a point where we can't do it. Yeah,
Hi, Mary. What do you got to do to become an intern?
You have to be in college. You have to be receiving college credit, and you have to apply. And those are things. You have to be in college, getting college credit. A lot of people want to intern, and they're like 30 years old, they're out of work. And I actually found out it's illegal to hire somebody for free. They have to be getting college credit exchange. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Hi. Assuming Howard doesn't resign, have there been any discussions about you staying on, maybe you and John Hine doing a show?
No, there haven't been any discussions. I have a strange feeling if Howard leaves. If Howard leaves, he said, he wants to continue doing the show, and I think I'd rather do that than John Hine and I wrap up something that isn't there anymore. Right here.
I haven't heard much of Beetlejuice lately. Is he doing okay? Is he
Yeah, he's doing fine. I know.
Is he booked in the last 2 weeks? In the last 2 weeks, is he booked?
Well, but here's the thing. There are no, technically there are no last 2 weeks yet. I get a lot of grief, on the internet. People are like, Gary, what are you wasting the last 3 weeks of the show with this stupid bimbo? And I'm like, well, there are no last 3 weeks. It's not like we announced the show is coming to an end. We don't know where it's at, and it could be, it could be not gone in no time at all. Yeah, right here.
Anybody from Uniondale showing up in your book?
Are you from Uniondale?
Jake. I mean, my sister Marianne.
Jacobson.
Yeah.
The guy I went to high school with. I knew you. Hey, hold on. I'm going to take, just because we got to get started, I'm going to do 3 more. So I'm going to start with you.
Do your sons know you're called Bababooey, or can they understand,
There's a story I tell in the book. My older son Jackson, when he was like 3 and a half, he and I were flying down to Texas to visit my brother. We're at the airport. We were in Dallas waiting to make the switch over. And I guess he'd heard the word Bababooey around the house, but it felt like I go, hey son, I'm Bababooey. Or you explain what it is. So we're just sitting there, and this guy walked by, and the fans are really funny. Like, you guys will walk by and they go, hey Bababooey, what's up? And it's like nice, so this guy walks by and he goes, he never even stopped. He goes, hey Bababooey, and he keeps walking, and my son started cracking up. And I go, what's so funny? He goes, that guy thinks you're Bababooey. Now, of course, with the book and the cover, they absolutely know that I'm Bababooey. Way in the back there.
Hey, you mentioned this isn't like the last 3 weeks, but is there anything planned if you guys resign for the first few weeks, or how's that going to transition back? Or
I guess we'll just come back.